The member from the 19th District, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good amendment. Please vote yes. Madam Speaker, to the particulars of the policy at hand, when we were developing the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights, it was a specific concern that parents mentioned that their children, their families, and they themselves as parents were and would be discriminated against because of their religious beliefs, particularly if they were strongly held and strongly articulated religious beliefs. Madam Speaker, it was a defining part of the process of building the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights. This is particularly important to the conversation that we're having tonight about what it means to have parents' rights in the state of Washington. And it goes beyond just a general conversation about First Amendment. It goes to the particulars of what parents and families and children want and need in this state at this time. Please vote yes.
Further remarks, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good amendment. Please vote yes. Madam Speaker, in our Constitution, as you've heard, there is the requirement that funding of our public schools be done in a uniform way to all. To selectively withhold apportionment money or other funds from one school district as opposed to another violates the state constitution. Madam Speaker, it also breaks other language and tradition in our laws, including constitutional and statutory law, that locally elected school boards have what's called broad discretionary power to set their curricula, to choose their textbooks, to hire the teachers and principals in their districts. And that broad discretionary power is equal to the power that the state level executives have, the governor or the state superintendent of schools. There is a false impression that the governor or the state superintendent somehow have a superior power or superior position to determine what a school district does in terms of its policies and curricula and other essential choices. It's not true. They have an equal standing. And really, the spirit, in my opinion, of the Constitution and the statute is that the locally elected school board really has a superior position, equal at least, and in practice superior to the authority that the state superintendent or the governor has, or really any of us involved in state government. Madam Speaker, this amendment is essential and urgent because the current superintendent of schools has, in the past, mentioned withholding essential money from school districts in order to punish them for not complying with his edicts. Madam Speaker, that is an inappropriate tactic for the state superintendent to use. And without this amendment, the underlying proposal seems to give him some cover to make such threats against school districts. Please, Madam Speaker, it is essential that we continue and strengthen and clarify the traditions of this state, which are that locally elected school directors are the ones who set policy about the schools in their districts. They know what's best for the children, for the kids in their schools, in their area. The state government provides them resources. They make the decisions. Please vote yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please move Amendment 404 to be adopted.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 404 be adopted. Remarks, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment addresses some language in the underlying proposal which describes, uses a phrase, gender expansive expression, or gender expansive students, or gender expansive identity. Madam Speaker, our law has no clear definition of what gender expansive means. And we know, having heard from parents and families and school administrators, that in some places, some children consider their gender identity to include non-human characteristics, that their notion of gender includes animal characteristics, a dog or a cat, or mythological creatures, I don't know, mythological creatures. Unicorns, thank you. Madam Speaker, it sounds absurd, but it's not. In our public policy, if we are going to honor that there is gender diversity among people, among humans, that it should be a gender expansiveness that is limited to human gender expression. And so what this amendment does is it narrows this definition of gender expansive expression to human gender. I think this is important for how school districts would handle a child who may be deeply confused about what he or she or they is, and help them grow into a more human notion of their own identity. Please vote yes on the amendment. Speaker, good amendment. Please vote yes. Not only do our bathrooms in our elementary schools and middle schools and high schools not often have discrete doors to each stall to use the bathroom, they also don't have family members escorting the children to the bathroom. And in several of these instances we've heard of using more open bathroom planning. We've heard of family members taking the child or the family member into the restroom. One of the things that we need to establish and confirm with the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights is the ability of parents to not be there with their child, to trust and know that not just a 14-year-old girl, but an 8-year-old girl can go into the bathroom and not be confronted with a man present while she's using the loo. This is an important thing, Madam Speaker. It's an important point in policy to maintain the trust that families have that their little children can use the bathroom and not be traumatized or upset by the other people using the bathroom with them. This will allow our schools to provide to those families a value proposition of the education, the high quality basic education they're providing to their children. Madam Speaker, we're seeing a decline in enrollments in our public schools in this state. Part of that is because of the broken trust between parents and the school system. If we vote yes on this amendment, it is a small step toward reestablishing that trust. Please vote yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We did both stand up at the same moment, but thank you.
You were both late.
Madam Speaker, this is a good amendment. Please vote yes. All three of my daughters played sports in Aberdeen. And a shout out to Miller Junior High School and Aberdeen High School. Go Bobcats. One of the things that two of the three of them told me in sort of close alliance was they enjoyed the few moments after a game. One was a soccer player primarily, one was a basketball player primarily, that they didn't have to think about anything but the game. They could finish the game, or maybe the practice too, and just go into the locker room, have a shower, clean up, maybe don't have a shower, I don't know, I don't go in the girls' locker room, but you know, basically decompress from the game. Think only about the game, go through in their minds what had happened, how they'd played, how the other team had played, and kind of clear their head after playing in a basketball game or a soccer game. And Madam Speaker, I think if we change the simplicity and sanctity of the place, if we open that locker room to anyone, I think that athletes of any gender, of either sex, would become more aware of themselves and what their sex is. And it would take away that simplicity, that sort of Zen-like quality, to be able to just not worry about the shape of your body, not worry about breaking up with your boyfriend, not worry about the fight with your mom, and just be you in the moment and decompress from the game you just played or the practice you just had. And we need to give kids that kind of system, that kind of infrastructure in this case, to be able to grow, to be able to learn about themselves. I mean, that's what sports is for. And that locker room should be a place where a young athlete, either a boy or a girl, doesn't have to think I'm a boy or a girl. They just are. And they can think about the game, and they can think about winning and losing, and they can think about scoring or defending in peace and clarity. I think if we open these things up, if we make it complicated, we take away that ability, that element of their growth. Please vote yes on the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well-meaning but imperfect amendment, please vote no. Madam Speaker, the existing law put in place by Initiative 2081 that created the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights is crystal clear that the parents must be notified, or guardians, Madam Speaker. The parents must be notified when a child is victimized, whether on school campus or off school campus. There's nothing confusing in the existing law, Madam Speaker. In fact, a King County state judge ruled that the existing law is good law, and the attempted challenge of that law in court was put aside. The existing law is clear. The existing law is not confusing. It's good law. Please vote no on this failed effort to further clarify. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to talk about Amendment 369 here, but I can't help but think, Madam Speaker, most of the parents in the state would like to get back to where our public schools were 25 years ago, when the results of basic education in this state ranked among the highest in the nation, rather than the low end of middle where they rank now. Madam Speaker, I think most parents would like to get back to where most kids are proficient at reading and math, rather than most kids not being proficient. That said, Madam Speaker, let's get to the point of this amendment. When I was working on the Parents' Bill of Rights, talking to parents and talking to teachers all around the state, what both parents and teachers said was that if parents were better informed and notified about what was going on in the classroom, the teachers would be more effective at teaching the kids, because there would be accountability both on the teacher and the parent to make sure that the classroom was kept in good order. What a number of the classroom teachers told me was the disconnect between what's going on in the classroom and what parents and guardians know about what's going on in the classroom is one of the reasons it's hard to keep order in the classroom. So what the Parents' Bill of Rights does is it assures that parents are notified in timely order, often immediately, what's going on with their kids in many contexts, including disciplinary contexts, and how they're behaving in the classroom. What this amendment is trying to get back to is that element of the Parents' Bill of Rights. Again, Madam Speaker, it's been ruled good law in this state that assures that the notification of parents quickly about what's going on with their kids helps the teachers keep better order in the classroom. The underlying bill obviates that. The amendment puts that accountability, that notification, that communication between teachers in the classrooms and parents of the kids back in law. And that's what we need to help good order in the classroom and get those proficiency tests back to where they were 25 years ago when this state's public schools were the envy of the nation. Please vote yes.
For Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to bring this back to the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights, the focus of our policy discussion here. The underlying bill, of course, would gut the Parents' Bill of Rights, and these amendments are attempting to restore pieces of the Parents' Bill of Rights. The relevance of this amendment to that process is that the underlying goal and overall purpose of the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights is information. It's that parents and guardians and families are notified and have, in as close to real time as we can provide it, knowledge and information about what their children are experiencing in school and in school-related activities. This proposal, this amendment, which would put this dashboard in place, is a good tool to achieving the long-term purpose of the Parents' Bill of Rights. It would give both educators and parents the ability to see critical information in, if not real time, something close to real time. And as I've said before, this kind of sharing of information benefits both the educators and the families. I strongly believe, and it's implicit in the Parents' Bill of Rights, that improving those channels of communication between educators and families benefits both, and most importantly, Madam Speaker, benefits the students. This is a good tool. This is a good suggestion. Please vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this is a great amendment. Can I quickly read to you what the 17 responsibilities in the proposal are?
Please proceed.
Follow school rules and policies. Respect others. Maintain a positive learning environment. Follow the dress code. Be punctual and attend school regularly. Complete assignments on time. Respect school property. Maintain academic integrity. Take responsibility for actions. Communicate appropriately. We could use that one here sometimes, Mr. Speaker. Engage in learning. Respect teachers and staff. Be prepared. Practice good hygiene and personal care. Participate in group activities. Use technology appropriately. And respect diversity. Sounds pretty good to me, Mr. Speaker. Please vote yes.
The good member from the 19th District, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about the school environment, the education environment, you'll often hear the term in loco parentis used, parents in place. Generally, when we talk about education issues, we use the idea of being a parent in a broad sense. In some senses, it can be the teacher, and that's the most common notion of in loco parentis, especially when children are young. But I think we can use the same broad notion of what the word parent means here. Throughout our discussion, both in the Washington State Parents' Bill of Rights and in this underlying bill which attempts to gut the Washington State Parents' Bill of Rights, and in this amendment which attempts to suture up the gutting a little bit so that some of the good policy stays in place, the notion of parent is used broadly. Parent can be a biological parent, parent can be a legal guardian, and parent can be what it is in many cases is really a family. Sometimes the parental figure in a child's life is a grandparent, an uncle or aunt, an older sibling. So let's not be peevish, Mr. Speaker. Let's agree that parents, broadly defined, are the primary stakeholders in raising children. I believe that that's the spirit of this amendment, and it is an important principle for us to have in our public policy. Parents, not the state, not the government, are the primary stakeholders in raising children. This is important, Mr. Speaker. Please vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very good amendment. Please vote yes. Mr. Speaker, again, the Parents' Bill of Rights is about communication and information. It's about notifying parents, in the broad sense, about what their kids are experiencing, primarily at school, but also in some other contexts. And this amendment is something that definitely is in the spirit and the mechanics of that communication, of that notification. As the member offering the amendment said, this is aimed primarily at working families who aren't always available during normal business hours to do things like look over curricula, look over textbooks. And when you talk to those parents and those families, Mr. Speaker, they want to do that kind of thing, they just don't have the time. So what this would do is say once a month or so, the school district has to make those learning materials, that information, the classroom material, available for review. Now, that doesn't mean that every teacher has to be in the classroom to do that. Those districts which already do this, and there are some that do, usually do it at a central location, maybe the principal's office or an administrative office, and or sometimes the district office itself, and make the information, the material, the content available to the families. And there's often an administrator or a principal or someone like that, maybe one teacher there, who's available to answer questions or talk to the family about the material the kid's learning at school. This is a good thing. And again, for emphasis, Mr. Speaker, the purpose of the Parents' Bill of Rights, that the underlying bill is really overturning, is open communication between schools and other people who care for kids and the families. It's a healthy thing, Mr. Speaker. It's a good thing. There's not enough of it, and this amendment helps make it happen. Please vote yes.
The good member from the 19th District, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member has 57 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to add here, we're talking a lot about objectionable material. Mr. Speaker, the parents reviewing the material may love the material. It may not be that they find it objectionable. They may find a book on basic math a great math book. They may be encouraged and enthusiastic about what they see. The point, Mr. Speaker, is not whether they like it or dislike it. The point is we need to make the material available for the parents to see. I mean, it doesn't have to be these horror stories. It might be they're really happy with the biology textbook their kids are using. Let's give them the opportunity to be either really happy or really upset. And let's make the information available to them on terms they can use it. Please vote yes.
The good member from the 19th District, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good amendment. Vote yes. This amendment restores the language that's in current law in the Washington State Parents' Bill of Rights that the underlying bill would seek to overturn. Mr. Speaker, when we drafted the Parents' Bill of Rights, we calibrated the language about releasing documents and information about kids to the existing standards in both FERPA, which applies, that's the federal law that applies primarily to school-related documents, and HIPAA, which is the federal law that applies primarily to health-related documents. Now, the truth is, Mr. Speaker, that FERPA actually controls most of those documents, and where there's any overlap, FERPA would apply. And FERPA actually protects the rights of parents and students to access their information. So it's really not restrictive on sharing this information, on notifying parents. It opens clear channels to how parents, families, and guardians can get information relevant to their children at school. So it is a misguided argument to say that this would create confusion. On the contrary, it aligns state law with federal law, both FERPA and HIPAA. Mr. Speaker, again, the object of the Parents' Bill of Rights is information. It's about notification about what children are experiencing. It's not confusing, Mr. Speaker. It's clear. And that's the great virtue of it. And when there is clear communication, when there is clear notification, I believe there will be better education outcomes. Vote yes on this amendment, Mr. Speaker. It is good for clarity and good outcomes for children. Vote yes.
Correction. The member from the 19th, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, for clarity's purpose, there is nothing in FERPA or HIPAA that prevent a custodial parent from knowing the medical history or medical records of a minor child. There is nothing in the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights that in any way runs against or conflicts with the language of either FERPA or HIPAA. To the point, Mr. Speaker, there is no reason in law to hide a minor child's mental health care experiences from custodial parents or guardians. That's one of the critical points of the Washington State Parents' Bill of Rights. And for emphasis, Mr. Speaker, state courts have reviewed it. There was a lawsuit, and the state court concluded that the Parents' Bill of Rights is good law in this state. The underlying bill would gut the parents' rights as described in the Parents' Bill of Rights. This amendment protects the parent or guardian's right to know that the minor child has been receiving mental health counseling and the details of that counseling. Parents and guardians are the primary stakeholders in raising children, Mr. Speaker, not the state government. Please vote yes on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to move Amendment 396 for adoption.
It has been moved and seconded that amendment number 396 be adopted. Remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the bizarre results of our state's public policy on health care and mental health care that's provided to children is that in some circumstances, a parent or guardian can receive a bill for medical services or mental health care services rendered to the minor child with no notification of what services were rendered. And that parent can be held financially responsible, financially liable for services not only that the parent never approved of, but the parent was never even notified of. Now, Mr. Speaker, here we come up alongside the state's mature minor doctrine, which we've heard discussed on the floor earlier tonight. What this amendment does is it does not touch the mature minor doctrine, which is about parental permission or the lack of parental permission when a minor child receives medical care or other kinds of health care. But what it does say is that if the parent or guardian can be held financially liable for services rendered to the minor child, the parent or guardian at least has to be notified that the services are being provided. Now, that doesn't mean that the parent has the ability to give permission or not, or withhold permission for the services. It merely says that the parent or guardian will be notified that the services were rendered. Now, Mr. Speaker, this was an essential and important part of the Washington State Parents' Bill of Rights, which is current law right now. It, in fact, was one of the most heated elements of the lawsuit that challenged the Parents' Bill of Rights. And it was one of the most significant conclusions of the state court that the Parents' Bill of Rights is good law, that it was okay for the parent to be notified that some services had been rendered if they were bound to pay for the services, even if they weren't required to give permission. So let's be clear what this amendment does. It restates that the parent must be notified if he or she is financially responsible for services rendered to the minor child. Please vote yes on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please vote yes on the amendment. It clearly states in the amendment that this could be a matter of arranging medical services or care either directly or indirectly. So it may not be that it's the school nurse administering a service. It could be that it, speaking hypothetically, is a counselor or teacher who, out of an abundance of concern, thinks they're doing the right thing by advising or helping arrange some kind of counseling or treatment for a child elsewhere. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to be careful to make sure that parents are notified when any such thing occurs. It could be innocuous. It could be a good thing that all parties agree would be helpful. But we can't know that it's a good thing where all parties agree would be helpful unless all parties know it's happening. Vote yes on the amendment and make sure that parents understand what's happening, either directly or indirectly, to their children. Please vote yes. Good amendment, Mr. Speaker. Please vote yes. Mr. Speaker, this whole concept of the state government determining what constitutes safe for a minor child, including the minor child being sent to or located in a so-called host home, a thing with very little legal meaning and very little regulatory definition, is troubling in the extreme. Mr. Speaker, there is existing law, and it's good law, for dealing with families where there is abuse or neglect of minor children. What this amendment does is it makes sure that parents and guardians are involved and informed of anything that relocates their minor child to a host home or shelter. Mr. Speaker, it is not sufficient that a bureaucratic agency may at its discretion notify the parents where their child is. Mr. Speaker, it is essential to good public policy that we are not confused and that we recognize that parents are the primary stakeholders in the raising of their children. We are in extremely troubling ground when the state presumes to decide what constitutes safe for a minor child. In extraordinary circumstances, it may be required, and normally there has to be some level of court adjudication. This amendment protects the standard. And the standard, Mr. Speaker, is that parents are the primary stakeholders in the raising of their children. Please vote yes on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good amendment, vote yes. Mr. Speaker, this focus on emergency treatments for anaphylaxis or other things like that is beside the point. The language of the amendment acknowledges that emergency treatment could be administered, and in that case, the parent should only be notified as soon as practical. The focus of the amendment is on non-emergency medical care. That's the purpose here. And in that case, what it says is that a school nurse or a counselor or a homeless liaison cannot act as the parent in place for a minor child to receive non-emergency medical care. Mr. Speaker, once again, the point of the Washington State Parents' Bill of Rights, which state courts have held is good law, is to inform parents when their child is receiving medical care or other activities at school and essential contexts of what minor children do in their children's lives. This is a good amendment. It clarifies that no one but a parent can agree with informed consent to a minor child receiving non-emergency health care. Let's not put the state between custodial parents and their minor children. Vote yes on the amendment.
A member from the 19th, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good amendment. Please vote yes. We all want to make sure that Washington State honors federal law. That's very important, Mr. Speaker. But to the point in this amendment, when we drafted the Parents' Bill of Rights and spoke to parents around the state, we heard time and again concern about role-playing games, that parents were hearing from their kids long after the fact that the kids had been subjected to these role-playing games where they had to pretend to be something other than they were. I suppose the point was to create some sense of identification or empathy. But some of these role-playing games involve some very incendiary issues of race, of gender, of background. And they were clearly, I believe, meant to provoke in the child perhaps some higher consciousness or expansion of consciousness, but in some cases they were very troubling to the children. One might even say traumatic. So it was essential in those focus groups and those conversations we had that we include language that if there were these role-playing games that children were being forced to participate in at school, parents would be notified about role-playing games. Now, this is not an issue covered in a lot of existing statute, either at the federal or state level. As we understood it, at least as we articulate it in the Parents' Bill of Rights, it was kind of a new point. But we wanted the clarity that if there were these role-playing games and other sorts of non-traditional learning mechanisms, that parents would be notified it was happening. It was a matter of some urgency to multiple families and parents around the state, and that was the reason we included it in the Parents' Bill of Rights, which, again, for emphasis, has been upheld as good law by a state court here. So please vote yes on the amendment, Mr. Speaker, to restore that notification to parents and families.
The member from the 19th, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, good amendment. Vote yes. Mr. Speaker, when the state gets in the business of determining what is historically accurate, you often end up with everyone agreeing that Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. Vote yes on the amendment, and let's avoid that stuff, Mr. Speaker.
The member from the 19th, Representative Walsh.
Vote yes on the amendment, Mr. Speaker. We're getting kind of lost in triple and quadruple negative propositions here. Basically, what this amendment does is it removes some duplicative language, redundant language that's in the underlying proposal. Mr. Speaker, there could be retaliation in all kinds of scenarios here. We're sort of borrowing trouble, Mr. Speaker, to assume that the implementation of good law would somehow result in an illegal retaliation. It's so convoluted, it's even hard to articulate, as both of the previous speakers have had trouble even saying what the language that this amendment gets rid of would do. It is late at night, Mr. Speaker, it's true, that could be a factor here, but I believe beyond that, this amendment simplifies and clarifies a complex and unclear section of the underlying proposition. So please vote yes for clarity's sake. And employees already have protections against retaliatory actions. So we can remove this without creating any harm for anyone. Please vote yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please vote no on this proposal. Madam Speaker, the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights is good law. Our own state courts have concluded this, and more importantly, families and parents, and yes, even educators around the state have concluded this. Madam Speaker, our school system, our public school system in this state is in crisis. Its performance metrics are at historic lows. You've heard the numbers, of course. Something like 70% of the students in our public school system can't do math to grade level. Something like 50% can't read or write to grade level. Madam Speaker, enrollment is in decline statewide and particularly in hotspots around the state. Families are removing their children from the public school system. And Madam Speaker, when you talk to those families who are removing their children from our public schools, they will tell you it's because the family has no sense of contact or communication with the system that would teach their children. What the Parents' Bill of Rights does is it creates clarity, not confusion. It creates certainty, not obtuse evasion. It creates a system by which parents know what they can know what they can expect out of our education system, out of even health care and mental health care in certain circumstances. And that gives them the confidence to be engaged. They know what to expect. They know what they can request. They know what can't be hidden from them. This clarity, Madam Speaker, creates trust, creates goodwill, creates positive interaction, engagement, involvement. And when you talk to educators, Madam Speaker, as you know, they will tell you that the best way to make sure that a child receives a great education is that the parents are involved. Don't gut the Parents' Bill of Rights. Let it stand, as the courts are letting it stand, and vote no on this proposal